Okay, so we proved yesterday that these measures, this P-empty set, so recap, very quick recap, that we had these two measures. That we defined as a limit of finite volume measures, and they were translational invariant and ergodic. In fact, if you think about it, we could have defined here, say, the measure with sources as well. It's just that, of course, they will not be translational invariant because the sources will play a very special role. But in terms of definition of the limit, that would work really the same. Okay. One other observation is that these things, the Burton-Keane argument works for them. So that was maybe step, let's call it step 0, the definition of these things. Then step 1 is to say, and sorry, maybe that was step -1. Then you had step 0, which was this thing that, this was step 0 and this was step -1. I just woke up, so I'm a little bit confused. Okay. I'm still afraid that I didn't put all the clothes that are like supposed to be decent. Okay, so this thing was also equal to this thing. Okay? That was step 1. It was the switching lemma, step -1, the switching lemma. Okay? Which the observation is that this was this thing, that this had to be to infinity and to infinity, because x and y needs to be connected in finite volume. When you look at this in finite volume, so it needs to be connected through the boundary. Really think of all the points on the boundary being equal. And this thing, we also rewrote it as this thing, beta times, or 1 over beta, sorry, times this thing of this event AXY, and AXY was the event which pictorially looked like connected to x. One edge for which the first current is equal to 1, and infinity like that, and otherwise no other connection. Okay? Maybe I put beta yesterday, it's 1 over beta, because it needs to cancel the beta term here. Okay, so that was step -1. Step 1 was, so the idea after step -1 was to observe that if this is ergodic invariant order translation, maybe I can prove that this cannot occur, then a percolation model having this type of thing is impossible. So the first step towards that was to say, well, first, these two measures are well defined. They are translational invariant and ergodic. The next step now is to say, well, in addition to that, these measures, like the sum of the two measures, is such that there is a unique infinite cluster when it exists. Okay, so step 2 is that under P-empty set ZD, P-empty set ZD, if N1 plus N2 hat, so the trace of the sum of the current, has 0, as no more than 1 infinite cluster, almost surely. So it's exactly the equivalent of what we proved for the FK-Ising model. Okay? So let's go back to what we did for the FK-Ising model. What do we have in this? Well, we use this Burton-Keane argument that was relying on ergodicity and translational invariance to prove that you couldn't have finitely many, but more than one infinite cluster. Well, we use a third property in this thing. We also use the insertion tolerance. We use that we conditionally on all the edges outside the box, we can open the edges inside the box, all the edges, right? This, if you think about it, here is still true. Why? Because edges that are closed for the trace of n1 plus n2 are edges which have both currents equal to 0, right? But having a current equal to 0 or having a current being even positive, well, just the ratio of the two probability is just cosh minus 1 divided by cosh of the thing, right? So with probability 1 minus 1 over cosh, you can turn a closed edge into an open edge. Okay, so here, like, let's say the probability that n1 plus n2 hat belongs to E smaller than infinity minus E smaller or equal to 1. So the probability that there is finitely many clusters but more than 1 strictly. Well, this is 0 by the same argument, just observing that conditionally that probability empty set ZD bar P empty set ZD, that the probability that that n1 plus n2 hat of E equal 1, conditionally on n1 plus n2 restricted to all the other edges, so if I condition on everything outside but the edge E, well, the probability that this edge is open is actually positive. In fact, it's larger or equal to 1 minus 1 over cosh. Simply because either it's already open, or if it's not open, it's closed, but then it could be even positive with probability 1 minus 1 over cosh. Okay? So this is good for the first part of the argument. Then there was a second part of the argument, which was the trifurcation argument. And there, we did use invariance of the translation, ergodicity, we still have them, except that in order to make my trifurcation, I needed to open edges, but I also needed to close some. And here I want to be extremely clear on the fact that the closing tolerance, if you want, this is wrong for this model. Simply imagine that n1 plus n2 restricted to the other edges gives you that here you have an arc of odd like that. Since xy is not a source of n1, for instance, or n2, then that forces this edge to be open necessarily. So we have insertion tolerance, we don't have closing tolerance. So here we need to go around the problem to do a trick that allows us to run the trifurcation argument. And the trick is quite simple once you find it, and it's just to work at a renormalized procedure. So what you do is you start exactly like before. There exists a K such that the probability of the box of size K connected to 3 disjoint clusters is positive. 3 disjoint clusters in the complement of this guy. And then what you just say is call a coarse trifurcation simply the model, a box for which all the edges here are open. Just do like that. Okay? In fact, there is another way you can create kind of true trifurcation, but it's a little bit more tedious. But you can definitely define a notion of coarse trifurcation, which is a box is a coarse trifurcation if there are 3 division clusters at least touching it when you remove in your head, not in the model, but in your head when you remove this box. Okay? Well, just check. So this has positive probability of occurring if there is an infinite cluster. I mean, if there is infinitely many infinite clusters. Well, just check that this guy still satisfies the property that if you take, so let's call T the number, maybe that's the number of coarse trifurcations in lambda n, and just check that T is smaller than something like, I don't remember exactly, but something like cardinality of K times the size of the boundary. The cardinality of the box of size K times size of the boundary. You can just run the same argument, except that you see you don't have kind of uniqueness. I mean, you could have many in your counting argument, if you want, when you peel off the process or when you go by induction, you will see that you can have many coarse trifurcation counting in the same place in some sense. So you get something a little bit weaker than this bound that was a bound for coarse trifurcations. But you can run an argument that works perfectly well. The important thing is that it's constant depending on K. K is fixed, times size of the boundary. So when n tends to infinity, you also get that the probability of being a coarse trifurcation must be 0. Okay? So probability of being of X being a coarse trifurcation is smaller than constant depending on K, which tends to 0. Okay? And this is larger or equal to constant times the probability of having infinitely many. Okay, so it's the same argument. It's just the small observation that, in some sense, you only need insertion tolerance to do the Burton-Keene argument. You never need to close edges. So that was step 1. Okay. Now let's go to step 2. I mean, I'm going to divide now the proof in 3 steps, in 3 cases, in some sense. So now what we want to prove is that the probability of this thing must be 0. If we prove that the probability of this thing is 0, this is equal to this, we win. So goal, step 2, let us prove that AXY is 0. So there are 2 cases which are going to be very simple in some sense. Let me keep going there. So case 1, let's assume that sigma x, sigma y, beta 0 tends to 0, I mean sigma 0, sigma x tends to 0 when x tends to infinity. Okay? Okay. Or maybe even that the lim inf is 0. Lim inf is 0 in x. Okay? So here, the observation is that in this case, simply there is no infinite cluster for this measure. If there is no infinite cluster, I mean, if you have this, at least you have an infinite cluster, so you prove the thing. So the idea in this case is that, well, we are going to prove that there is no infinite cluster. Maybe let's call P to be the, well, so then no infinite cluster. Indeed, So how do we prove that? Well, we are just going to prove that because there is uniqueness of the infinite cluster, if there is an infinite cluster, then the probability that 0 is connected to X doesn't tend to 0, and then we will prove that this is contradictory. So first thing is that P empty set ZD bar P empty set ZD of 0 connected to X tends as X tends to infinity to the probability that 0 is connected to infinity squared. How do you prove that? That this is larger or equal that the limit of this when X is equal to this. How do we prove that? Well, first thing that you prove is that the limit of this in X, well, is the same that 0 and X connected to infinity. Okay? And this, the fact that you can replace 0 connected to X to 0 and X connected to infinity, is measurability plus uniqueness. And there, the uniqueness is very important. Assume you have infinitely many infinite clusters, even if each point has a positive probability of being connected to infinity. When X tends to infinity, 0 and X will be connected to infinity with positive probability, okay? But they will not be in the same infinite cluster with positive probability. So this is due to uniqueness and simply measurability. Actually, in this case, it's just uniqueness. Okay. Then how do you prove that this is the limit here? So, if we want only that, it's just uniqueness. And then this thing, the probability of this thing, just by measurability and ergodicity, the limit is just that. Right? It's mixing. So you say that 0 and X connected to infinity, it's approximately by 0 connected to boundary of the box of size n, X connected to boundary of the box of size n center on this guy. Use mixing, this tends to the product of the two, and okay? So and this is by ergodicity. Okay, so if this is positive, then this is positive. So let's prove that this is not positive by simply observing that the probability that 0 is connected to X, this is equal to what? It's actually equal to something. When you have this type of events, just think this should scream to you switching lemma. So let's use the switching lemma here. So if I use the switching lemma, this is equal to what? Let's think for a second that you are with G bar and G here. If you use the switching lemma, this is going to give you the sum for n1 with sources 0 and x, and n2 with sources 0 and x. n1 is on G bar and n2 is on G, of W beta of n1, W beta of n2, divided by the sum over n1 is empty set on G bar, n2 is on G, of W beta of n1, W beta of n2. Right? I just use the switching lemma. If here I put G. Right? If I use the switching lemma, I end up exactly with that. I just choose at the top that switching these two sources 0 and x is just putting empty set, and the indicator function that 0 is connected to x in G. But then this is just the expression for this probability. So when G tends to ZD, here what do I recognize? Let me first write another step. What do we recognize? We recognize sigma 0, sigma S G bar, sigma 0, sigma X G. So when G tends to infinity, I end up with here this expression. This is an equality, in fact. Okay? But my assumption is that this lim-inf is 0. So the lim-inf of the quantity there is also 0. Okay? And that shows that this thing is 0. Okay? So this is really somehow the simple case. And it's actually the beginning of the story of this whole theorem. I mean, of this whole, proved by Aran. I will mention it after. This is actually how we prove with Michael Eisenman and Vladas Sidoravicius that the phase transition of the Ising model is continuous. Because what we will prove, I will just mention it after in more detail, but we'll prove that at the critical point, the spin-spin correlations for the free states are tending to 0. But that implies, by just what we did here, forget about the next cases, what we did here implies that the plus state and the free state are equal. That the plus state things are equal to the free state, but that implies that the spin-spin correlation for the plus state tends to 0, but they are larger than the magnetization squared by FKG. Probability that 0 is connected to x in the wired random cluster measure is large. I will write the proof properly later, but that's actually how we prove that the magnetization is 0. So the idea there is really to introduce this measure and to work geometrically on it. Okay, so that is the end of case 1. Then comes the second case, which is not so difficult, which is case 2. And case 2 is that for just the second measure, just this one, there is an infinite cluster almost surely. So here I mean so every single time I put that, I mean by that, right? Like in the trace of the two currents. So since here I have only one current, it's in the trace of one current that I mean. Okay? Okay, so there, what will be the idea? In this thing, the idea is the following. There is a unique infinite cluster, and there is ergodicity. So if you think about it from a point x here, if I take the multigraph associated to n1 plus n2, how many disjoint paths can I find to go to infinity? If I have an infinite cluster which is made of infinitely many kind of bottleneck like that, edges of value 1. Well, if I look at the multigraph associated to it, well, almost surely there will be only two paths going to infinity, two disjoint paths going to infinity. One which goes that way and one which goes that way. But I cannot have three, because if I have three, this would contradict the existence of all these bottleneck points of current 1 for the first current. Okay? So first observation here is that the probability in the two things together, the probability that there exists 3 disjoint infinite paths in M, which is this is associated to N1 plus N2. So it's a multigraph associated to N1 plus N2, starting from 0. This is 0. Okay? There cannot be that. Okay. But notice that if you have that, then if you have this event, then you already have this event in the first current. So P empty set ZD hat of A of xy, where N1 is replaced by just N, because here there is only one current. This probability is in fact larger or equal to this one. I see people writing, just a hint for them to earn time on me, just call this like P with 2 bar or something like that. I'm just writing it like that to slow myself down. So the goal is not to slow you down. Okay. So this is clear because if this event occurs, already in the first current, there must be 2 disjoint paths going to infinity because this was forced by the sources. If this thing is 1, then these 2 guys, when you ignore this edge, are already sources, so they need to have a path to infinity. And of course, if in the sum of the 2 currents you have this blocking surface, then you have it already in the first current. Okay? Okay, but imagine that this, like, let's assume now, I mean, what I can prove is that this thing, so A of 0x, I mean, N1 belongs to A of 0x, and 0 is connected in N2 to infinity, then it's 2 independent events. One depends on the first current, the other one on the second one, and it's larger or equal to this thing, let's call it A, and this thing, let's call it B. So this is larger or equal to AB, which is strictly positive. But observe that on this event, you do have 3 disjoint paths going to infinity. You have 1 in the second current. So if you look at the multigraph, if you think, this guy is going to create 1 path in the multigraph to infinity, and this one is going to create 2 paths, 1 in that direction, 1 in this direction. So in the sum of the 2 currents, in the multigraph associated to the sum of the 2 currents, you will have 3 disjoint paths going to infinity. Let's call this thing C. So this is smaller or equal to C. Okay? So these were the 2 easy cases. Now remains to do the slightly more tricky one, which is the remaining case, so case 3. So there we are going to assume that you have no infinite cluster in the second current, and that sigma 0, sigma x 0 beta is larger or equal to constant for every x. So that's our assumptions, and we need to prove that there is a contradiction in this case as well. And if we have done that, we have concluded. And I mean, I just want you to realize that actually proving that without this argument of Aran is like 100 pages of hard work. It's really like, I mean, it requires 2 papers of Bodino, which are complicated. This requires a surface tension, so it's another paper and so on. So here it's a purely ergodic treatment of the thing, and in some sense fairly soft. So, okay. So first thing I want to observe here, so now what I'm going to do is the following. What I'm going to do is here we contradicted the fact that there are 3 disjoint paths going to infinity, and this is impossible. Here we are going to take 2 points, 0 and x. Let's say x. And what we are going to contradict is the fact that there are 2 disjoint paths going from 0 to x. So 3 paths to infinity is contradictory, but in fact 2 disjoint paths between arbitrarily far points is also contradictory. Right? Because in some sense you had the 3 against 2 is because you had the third path going the other way in the case of infinity. But here between 2 points, because you have cut points, having 2 disjoint paths between them is contradictory. And the way I'm going to prove it is I'm going to prove it in 2 steps. I'm going to prove that I construct one using the second current, and I construct one using the first one. Okay? Okay. So first observation. So I assume that you have, first observation is that probability when you put sources at 0 and x for ZD, not for ZD bar, but of 0 connected to infinity is 0. Okay? Or there exists an infinite cluster is 0. How can you prove that? Well, it's not quite the assumption. The assumption is when you have no sources here. Okay? But this thing here is what? Is Z0xZD of there exists infinite cluster divided by Z0xZD. Right? It's a definition of my thing. Okay, well, maybe take infinite volume and then, okay. I'm panicking. What do I do? Okay, G. Just, let's do it in finite volume and just say there exists a cluster to this, from 0 to boundary of the box of size n, okay? Just to be able to do this manipulation. Otherwise, defining the partition function of infinite volume is going to work poorly.
It's not 0.
Sorry?
Then it's not 0.
It's not 0, but we are going to just bound it, and then I'm going to take the limit and say that this is 0. So my observation here is that I want to recast this in the case of empty set. Okay? And the way I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, this is 1 over sigma 0 sigma x g times, well, z empty set g. And here, well, if I take a path from 0 to x and I change the parity along this path, then I end up, if I start from a current with sources at 0 and x, I end up with a current with sources at, with no sources. Right? So if I take a path, so there is 0 and x, and here maybe let's take a cluster from the box of size k, where these 2 guys are in the box of size k, to the boundary. If I pick a path in the box from 0 to x, and I switch the parity along this path, then, or if you want, if you add 1 to all the currents along this path, what will you do? You will not change the number of sources along the path, simply because you add 1, so you add 2 to the degree at every vertex. Or you subtract 1, you do what you want. But at 0 and x, you do change the parity. So my point is that here, up to a constant, which definitely depends on 0 and x and on beta. So it may be a constant which is as small as an exponentially small constant in the distance. So it can be really tiny. But up to a constant here, I can replace by this thing. Okay? Now take g to infinity. This converges to this quantity. This converges to the probability of having a cluster from the box of size n to the box of size n, the box of size k to the box of size n, and this is a constant. Now let n go to infinity. What did I do? I just expressed this as constant divided by the spin-spin correlation times the probability for the empty set current to have an infinite cluster. But this is 0. So that's why this thing is also 0. This is a little bit technical, but it's very simple. It's an exercise. Okay. But this seemingly trivial thing has a very nice consequence, and it's a very, very nice one, is that if I put what is this thing? To what this thing is equal? Probability when you take this current with sources at 0 and x, that 0 is connected to x. Well, this is just 1. It's automatic. But it was not automatic before I proved that, because you could imagine that taking the limit, well, typically the connection in finite volume between 0 and x would go farther and farther away and maybe go to 2 disjoint clusters. But since I proved that, now this is automatic. So the probability of this thing is 1. So what I'm going to do, so claim, well, I'm going to prove the same thing for ZD bar. I mean, I'm going to prove that this is larger or equal to 0 for the limb soup. So the limb soup is strictly positive. Okay? Okay, if I manage to do that, let's put that aside. If I manage to do that, then notice that what I will have is that the limb soup in x of this thing is strictly positive. So 0 in n1 and 0 connected to x in n2. I just put the two things together. One is probability 1, the other one is... Okay. I think I bored you already too much with going to finite volume to then take the scaling limit. So here I'm going to just state it directly. This thing, you can do the switching lemma between 0 and 0x here, because 0 and x are connected automatically already. So you can do the switching lemma and get that this is in fact sigma 0 sigma x plus beta, sigma 0 sigma x 0 beta times probability empty set ZD bar, probability empty set ZD bar of 0 connected to x by 2 disjoint cluster, 2 disjoint path. So if you have that, then in the sum of two currents, so if you have that, then in the sum, I mean 0 is connected to x by 2 disjoint paths in n1, I mean in m of n1 plus n2. So this is an event depending on the sum of the two currents. So I'm allowed to do the switching lemma, and I end up with this thing. But this is contradictory. This thing is equal to 0. Okay? Sorry, this is 1 over that. Sorry. So this is contradictory because this is 0. I mean, the lib sup of this is 0. So here I'm going to conclude. So this is contradictory. So this is contradictory because this is smaller or equal to 1 over constant squared times lim sup over x of to that. And I just told you that this lim sup is 0. So this is 0 and this is contradictory. Okay? So the only thing I need to convince you of is that this is positive, the lim sup there. Okay? So how do I convince you of that? Well, observe that by ergodicity, you can actually prove that the probability of A0y intersected with AXZ, this is positive. Okay, it just converges when x goes to infinity, it converges to the intersection of the probabilities by ergodicity. Okay? So that means that in this thing, you have an edge here between 0 and y. You have a connection. Let's put 0 and y like that. But you have a connection between x and z. And this goes to infinity, this goes to infinity. Right? I mean, it could be that y is here and 0 is here and z is here and x is there, but just, switch the notation. I mean, you have complete freedom in the notation there. So call 0 and x the points that are connected like that. So what I want to use is that this should imply, you see, if you forget in your head, if you forget about this part and this part, it seems that you have, you see, ignore all of this, ignore all of this. It seems that you have sources at 0 and x and a path between 0 and x. Okay? Well, what you can prove, okay, maybe let me prove it like that. I mean, so we are going to prove that the probability of this thing is actually smaller or equal to the probability. Sorry, there is only one current here. Let's put only one. Okay. We are going to prove that this implies this thing, that the probability of this configuration is smaller than the probability of 0 connected to x in this thing. So how do we do that? Let's take this guy. Of this thing. So to y, then 0, then x, then z, and to infinity. So notice that here, in fact, in addition, it looks like that, right? It looks like 0 and x are in a finite cluster. So let's just decompose on this cluster the value of this thing. Let's call it C, the cluster of 0 and x in the current. So it's the sum over every C of what? So there is one, let me use a notation which is not true. Of course, you cannot write that usually, but 1 over z empty set of zd bar. By this, I mean that you can do infinite volume, take the scaling limit, and so on. Okay? So 1 over this. And here, in order to have exactly this C, what do I need? I need a certain weight here, which is going to be completely local. It's going to be a product of certain weights in C. Let's call it W of C. It's purely local. And then I need in the complement, what do I need? I need the occurrence of this thing here. So the occurrence of this thing, which, by the way, I'm going to just ignore that. I'm going to say the probability of this is smaller than the probability where I ignore that. So if I ignore that, and I just say that, say, y needs to be connected to x or to infinity, what remains here is just all the possible configuration with sources at y and z. Okay? The probability of this weird event is smaller than the probability of just having C and outside having sources at y and z. Okay? But here I have almost what I want, because notice that this, well, I can put z empty set zd bar minus c and multiply by z empty set zd bar minus c. This quantity here is the spin-spin correlation in zd bar minus c. So it's smaller or equal to 1. So this whole thing is smaller or equal to the same sum like that. What is this thing? This is actually the probability that 0 is connected to x in a finite cluster in my thing. This is conditioning on the cluster which are finite of 0 and x. So this is exactly the probability for 0x. Sorry, and here, sorry, I'm going to put z 0x zd bar and z 0x zd bar. So this thing is just the probability in zd bar of 0 connected to x and 0 not connected to infinity. And the second term here is sigma 0, sigma x, 0 beta. So what did I prove? This is bounded from below by a constant. Or it's smaller than 1, actually. So I just proved that this thing is larger or equal to this one. But this one was just not tending to 0. It was tending to something which was constant when x goes to infinity. OK? So it's a very clever thing. And this is the end of the proof. So the important thing there was that it's completely ergodic. I think that's the thing to remember. Let me conclude by mentioning two things. So first, a theorem, which is a subset of this, is that in dimension d larger or equal to 3, well, the magnetization at beta c is equal to 0. And this is a corollary of what we just did, in fact. Why? Well, by the previous theorem, sigma 0 sigma x plus beta is equal to sigma 0 sigma x 0 beta. And this is true at beta c, a fortiori. Now, I did already prove to you in a previous lecture that sigma 0 sigma x beta c 0 is in fact the sup of a beta of sigma 0 sigma x beta 0, where beta is smaller than beta c. I prove the continuity from below. And there is a theorem, which is called the infrared band, which I definitely don't have time to prove now, but which is a theorem which was introduced, which follows from reflection positivity, which was introduced by Fröhlich, Simon, and Spencer, and which says that these spin-spin correlations, in fact, they are bounded by 2 over beta times the Green function. This is really the Green function of simple random walk. So the proof is a little bit, it's not very direct, and actually it's not very robust either, but it works in this case. Intuitively, one way of seeing that you may be bounded by the Green function is to remember that the high temperature expansion provides us with some kind of random walk interpretation or Green function interpretation of these spin-spin correlations. Okay? It was a very non-Markovian walk. It was not simple random walk at all. But at the same time, I just mentioned to you at some point that this random walk is a little bit, we should be understand it as a safe-avoiding walk. It's a little bit repulsive, yes?
Isn't it for the Fourier transform?
Yeah, but that's also then from Messager Miracle in the Ising model, it gives you exactly the space one. Yeah. So here I don't want to tell you anything about the proof. But for any model which is reflection positive, you get the thing for the Fourier transform, which gives you an average version in space. And in order to get to the point-to-point, you need something more, and this is due to the Messager Miracle inequality. And yeah, maybe, okay, I should say maybe then let's put a constant here. But I want a constant over beta. Okay. So what was I saying? Yeah, that this is like the Green function of a repulsive random walk. If it's kind of repulsive, then it's natural to expect that its Green function is going to decay faster than the Green function for simple random walk. This is only heuristic. It's not at all how the proof goes. And I can definitely tell you that I would love to be able to prove it that way. As actually, I think a very important problem is to manage to get infrared bound without reflection positivity, just by this interpretation of repulsion of the random walk representation of the model. But you have that, okay. So in particular, this thing is smaller than 1 over distance to the d minus 2 times the constant. So this was C0, this is C1. So this thing goes to 0. Okay? This thing is bounded, by constant divided by x to the d minus 2, and therefore it goes to 0. But remember, that was exactly the first case, actually the simple case of our previous theorem. It was the case where it was directly implying that you have no infinite cluster. Okay? Okay, so in particular, actually, I don't know why I've said that's the first case, but anyway, that was just to say on the parenthesis that you didn't need the case 2 and 3. But what we are going to really use is that this implies that sigma 0, sigma x, beta c plus tends to 0 as x tends to infinity, since it's equal to the 0 state. Okay, but this, remember, is the probability at PC for the random cluster model of 0 connected to x. How do we conclude? Well, this is larger or equal to the probability that both guys are connected to infinity. And by the FKG inequality, this is larger or equal to the probability that 0 is connected to infinity squared. And this is magnetization at beta c squared. So what did I prove? I proved that the magnetization was equal to 0. Okay, so that was the first thing I wanted to say. The magnetization is always 0 for nearest neighbor. Yeah?
Then you have to do that phi 0 equals phi 1, it would have to be.
Yeah, that's what we proved here. Yeah. You prove that phi 1 is equal to phi 0, and then you need to prove that for phi 0 you have no infinite cluster. Okay? And in order to prove it, you use the infrared band. For people who think that there is something analogous here to the question of, for Bernoulli percolation, do you have an infinite cluster at criticality in Z3? Here you see there are two steps in some sense in the proof. First one is proof phi 1 equal phi 0. And this is the theorem we proved before. Okay? Then there is a second step, which is prove that phi 0 has no infinite cluster. If you want, this first step for Bernoulli percolation is absolutely trivial. There is a unique measure. It's a second step which is not trivial at all, which here for this model is much simpler because the second step follows from reflection positivity, which doesn't exist for Bernoulli percolation. This bound for Bernoulli percolation, probability of 0 connected to x smaller than Green function, is just not true. In dimension 3, it's wrong. The exponent here is actually smaller than 1. Okay? So there is, I mean, here I really want to emphasize, because that's a question that I was asked really a lot when I was presenting this theorem, is does it give you a hint on what is happening for Bernoulli percolation? And my answer is honestly no, because here the question is proving phi 1 equals phi 0. That was the difficulty, and that was why we built up this, we created this new measure and did an ergodic study of this measure. After proving that phi 0 has no infinite clusters, this was trivial. Okay, the next, I mean, just I mentioned two other theorems, is that now I was always assuming invariance under translation. What happens if I don't do it? Well, it depends. So theorem due to Eisenman and Higuchi. Here it's due to Eisenman, myself, and Sidoravicius. And it says in 2D, all Gibbs states are actually linear combination of the plus and minus states. So all Gibbs states are convex combination of plus and minus states. And well, this is not the case in any dimension. So Dobrushin proved that for beta very, very, very large, in fact, there exists a state in 3D which is not invariant under translation. There exists a state not invariant under translations. And let me just explain to you how you construct it, and very briefly, I mean, just heuristically, tell you the difference. Yes?
So that statement is b equal to 3, right?
Sorry, yeah, of course, yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks. It would have been nice to finish on two theorems that contradict each other. But as a mathematician, it's... Okay. So how do you construct it? Well, if you want to construct a state which is not invariant under translation, the simplest you could try to do is to construct a state which far up, say, looks like the plus state and far down looks like the minus state. Okay? Because the minus and plus states for beta larger than beta c are different. This we know just by the spin correlation of 1 point. So in a finite box, if you want to construct such a state, you are going to put plus boundary conditions everywhere on the top part of the box and minus boundary conditions everywhere on the bottom. Right? If you do that, then at least deep down you feel like you should look like a minus state, and deep up like a plus state. And now what you do is that you look at a box of size k, but fixed, inside. So you have a box of size n and a box of size k, and you let n go to infinity with this boundary condition, and you see what it gives you in the box of size k. Okay? So in 2D, when you do that, I mean, you have plus on top, minus on bottom, and you have a natural interface between the pluses and the minuses. Think you are maybe on the triangular lattice instead of being on the square lattice, or if you are on the square lattice, take the bottommost interface. So you have an interface between the minuses and the pluses. And note that if you condition from below on this interface, what is above it, well, only sees plus boundary conditions. If you condition from the top on this interface, what is below it is minus boundary conditions. So if this interface just always avoids the box of size k, then with a certain probability it goes way above it, and then in the box you see the minus state, and if it passes below, it passes well below it, and you see the plus state. So if this interface avoids really like fluctuates a lot, then it's tending towards the fact, in addition here you have symmetry, it's tending towards the fact that this is just going to be the average of the plus state and the minus state. And in fact, in 2D, you can prove that it fluctuates, this interface. In fact, it's funny to, I could ask you, what do you think it gives you when beta is smaller than beta c, when beta is equal to beta c, when beta is larger than beta c? So this thing, you have a chance. This thing, people who know a little bit of conformal invariance have a chance. This is like a little bit harder, but you still have a chance. OK, who wants to try? You know, so you don't say anything. But
What was the question?
so this interface, when you let n go to infinity, to what this interface looks like from far away. Sorry?
The question is in dimension
2. I drew a two-dimensional here thing, and then I will tell you what it gives you in other dimension, but that is going to be harder. So in fact, when beta is larger than beta c, please also, I mean, at least give me this one, because when beta tends to beta c, the plus state, I mean, when beta is larger than beta c, the plus state really is very robust, and the minus state is very robust as well. So this interface doesn't want to fluctuate too much. It's going to fluctuate, but not too much. And in fact, it's going to be a Brownian motion. It's going to fluctuate in Racine of n, square root of n, sorry, if this is distance n, square root of n like that. And because it fluctuates, well, it avoids this box of fixed size with very good probability, because this will be just the probability that a Brownian motion will pass. I mean, a random walk of length n would end up between minus k and k there. Okay, so this is the limit for beta larger than beta c.
So, sorry, it works like the graph of one-dimensional Brownian motion?
Yes, exactly, like the graph of one-dimensional Brownian motion. Globally, right, when you look at it at size n, when you do the scaling limit, so this is of size n, you rescale that it looks like a box of size 1, it's going to converge to Brownian motion. Here, it's going to converge to SLE3 for people who know what it is. So conformally invariant objects, which really fluctuates a lot because this guy has actually positive probability to go macroscopically up and macroscopically down. So it's not even, you see the Brownian motion is still like the window is square root n. At beta c, this guy is actually going up and down at macroscopic distance. So this is a theorem by Stas Smirnov and all his team in Geneva that this converges to SLE3. Now a very good question for you guys. Let's really take the triangular lattice because I want really to have a good definition of the interface, a unique definition of the interface. On the triangular lattice for beta smaller than beta c, in fact the scaling limit here should be SLE6. It should be exactly the same as for percolation. As you would, percolation is the infinite volume, I mean it's the beta equals 0 case, and it should be for any beta smaller than beta c, it should be SLE6. And this is an absolutely beautiful conjecture and beautiful problem. What happens here in 1 minute? Well, what happens here is that you can also do the same and you are going to have some kind of surface between pluses and minuses. It's not entirely clear how you define it, but okay. Let's say there is some kind of surface between minuses and pluses. And the point is that for beta very large, this surface just doesn't fluctuate. It's so constrained in some sense that it wants to be flat. And with positive probability, it's going to intersect there. And what you can see is that then if you go like 100 up, the probability that the interface passes below you is larger than the probability that it passes above you and things like that. So there is roughness. But what is interesting is that there is no roughness, smoothness. And what is interesting is that here, the big conjecture is the following, is that this doesn't occur for any beta larger than beta c. So, by the way, I did prove that the plus state and the minus states are equal for beta smaller or equal to beta c. And this is actually, this implies, and this is not very difficult, that there is a unique Gibbs states for beta smaller or equal to beta c. That this is the only possible thing. So there is a natural question is, can you find, I mean, is this state equal to the average of the plus and minus states for, I mean, is it not equal to the average of the plus and minus states for any beta larger than beta c? Or is there some kind of beta star, strictly bigger than beta c, but strictly smaller than infinity, for which below this beta star you look like the average, and above you don't look like the average? Well, this is what is physically conjecture, that there is a beta star which is strictly larger than beta c. And this is called roughening phase transition, and this is a big problem in dimension 3. So this for Ising is maybe, I would say, one of the biggest problems in dimension 2. The roughness, meaning proving that this is not true for any beta larger than beta c, that if beta is close to beta c, very, very proche, if it's very, very proche to beta c, I teach you French because I think English is, math is lost now. But if beta is very, very close to beta c, that in fact you are in this thing. All Gibbs states are convex combination of the plus and minus states. So in 2 dimension, conformal invariance for beta smaller than beta c, and in higher dimension, roughness phase transition. I think that if you solve any of those things, it's good. But still try to do what your PhD advisor is telling you to do. Except you, Franco, because this is a little bit related to what we are doing. But anyway, okay, thank you very much for your attention.